Good evening, my friends. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, as well as turn on the notifications so that way I'm part of your lives forever, and you'll never be able to escape me. So today it was there was a bit of a snowstorm, so I didn't really go out much today. Um, there was like snow covering up my window, and it was just kind of you know pretty hectic. I can't really imagine I would get anywhere uh, easily. So, as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be discussing a vaporwave topic, which a lot of people have been asking me for to do another history of vaporwave. I'm never going to do that again, and the reasons why uh, is because I'm just not involved in the scene whatsoever. I don't even know what's happening enough to even do a documentary, nor do I even really care. The reason why I did that documentary in the first place was because I felt like the whole vaporwave movement was very relevant in the current sphere of events in the 2010s. And it was just important as a genre to illustrate and go deep into in terms of understanding where it came from, why it was here, where it was going. So for people wondering when I'm going to do another video on that topic, well, guess what? I'm never going to do one. So you can stop waiting because there's no reason. Nothing's changed drastically in the genre. There's nothing innovative going on in the genre. It's still the same, shit that's been circulating since like 2016, 2017, pretty much when I started Hard Vapor. And I don't want to take too much credit, but that entire genre kind of stopped progressing at that point. It kind of just became its own solidified, group of people basically that just make their own kind of music and they hang around their own kind of people. And if you don't fit in, then that's about it. But I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about Floral Shop and why I think it's a demonic album. I do use that term lightly. Calling something demonic is very harsh of a label to put onto something, and I don't tend to do that to many things. The only real pieces of art I would consider truly demonic are basically, some forms of vaporwave. A lot of trap music is demonic. Some rock and roll is demonic. And, you can equate demonic with other aspects of music that have existed. You can look at the blues, for instance. A lot of it is, talking about the devil and, a lot of sinful, how should I say, just expression in terms of the internal struggle of, dealing with your demons and whatnot, which seems to be present in a lot of blues, a lot of early 20th century music, which I wouldn't really consider demonic in spirit because it's the thing with demonic energy and demonic spirits and demonic art is that it's not upfront about it. You're not, you don't, if you look at a piece of art that's, very dark and sinister, it's not demonic because you're looking at it and you are recognizing the darkness or the evil that is there. You're witnessing it and you're experiencing it to the point where you're not confused, you're not disillusioned, you're not tricked, basically. And the thing with demonic energy is that it's very enticing and it's a trickster kind of energy. It sort of leads you down a path where you don't really want to go, but it's pretty much like a disguise. It's painting a picture that seems nice and cozy and fun on the surface, but once you get into a repetitious state of consuming it and getting involved in it, it starts to take over your mind. And this is quite intense to say about a music genre, because I don't think if you're going to go up and listen to Floral Shop right now just casually, nothing's going to happen to you. I'm talking more of on a subconscious level, because we're constantly inputting things into our brain every day. So if you're constantly listening to Floral Shop or things like that, or you're listening to trap music, certain types of trap music, obviously, and you're constantly putting in an input in your brain that is contrary to what you actually want in life, it's going to affect you. And the reason this doesn't apply to other dark art or other demonic things is because you recognize it's evil, or you recognize it's something that you want to avoid. Even though you are consuming it, you're sort of saying to yourself, okay, like, I don't want to relive this, or you're sort of empathizing with the person who's expressing their struggle through a demonic episode, or however you want to call it. There's a certain balance between that aspect. And when it comes to demonic music, if you're listening to it in a very passive way, not really paying attention to what you're listening to, what's the hidden meaning, what's under the surface of everything you're listening to, then you're going to be inputting that information into your brain. And the RZA put this very clearly in his book, The Tao of Wu, which I would highly recommend for anybody to read. But he talks about this in hip-hop generally, when hip-hop started going towards the trap route. Before that, trap is part of hip-hop, but I think it's important to make a distinction between trap and hip-hop, because trap is essentially all the artistic merit that exists within hip-hop, just that removed and put into trap. People know that I dislike trap for many reasons. And it's not because, I'm a boomer or whatever, because it's like, oh, I just don't understand. I'm just not with the times and the present and the future. I've made a lot of trap beats and whatever, tried to get into that. And it's just not, you realize something about it is that it's kind of boring. It's been done millions of times, and a lot of the subject matter is very under the surface, very demonic. So the RZA puts this clearly in when he's talking about hip-hop, where he's talking about this very aggressive style of hip-hop that's very in your face and sort of expressing, the demons of rage, so to speak. And when you listen to that kind of music, you're not really putting an input into your brain. You're not letting it sink into you, because you're experiencing that anger, that emotion in the present when you're listening to that music. So you're not really digesting it. You're sort of just experiencing it, and then it sort of comes and goes as you're listening to it, because you know exactly what it is. You know what the experience is. To him, he was considering what the dangerous forms of hip-hop are, sort of those more chilled out, slow, sort of in the background, that have these very violent lyrics, but it's like played against this R&B beat, and it's very chill, and you're sort of listening to this like in a zone, so to speak, but you're inputting this data of violence and anger and drug abuse and womanizing, all this other crap that you're just inputting in your brain while you're trying to chill out. And it's sort of creating this tension inside of you in your subconscious that is not being expressed, and it's not leaving you, in a sense, which is what happens when you listen to a more aggressive hip-hop, stuff that's actually real and in your face. If you're going to make aggressive music, make it in an aggressive style, so that way it's not bubbling underneath the surface, which when you're getting into music and art, there is a lot of responsibility that I don't think people realize, because they think they can just make art for fun, and they don't realize the repercussions that they may create because of that. And it's something I always try to keep in mind, because there's a lot of music that I've made that I even don't listen to anymore, because it puts me in a bad headspace. It puts me in a headspace that's not in line with what I want. And because of that, I don't listen to that music anymore. It served a purpose at one point, but then I realized, like, having this as a consistent thing I consume is not good for me. So let's get down to the reality of Floral Shop here, because I've been kind of rambling on about what demonic music is. But the reason why I think Floral Shop is primarily demonic, it actually took me a long time to sort of figure this out. But I sort of had a moment of clarity when I listened to it on shrooms. I took a lot of shrooms one night. For anybody who's taken psychedelics, you know that it can be intense. So when I listened to that album on shrooms, before I would always listen to it because it was kind of chill and relaxing, and I didn't really think much about what I was listening to. And after, 2014, I would say, was when I started becoming very isolated after I started listening to it. And I didn't realize it at the time. I was becoming very isolated, very depressed, very angry, and very bitter towards everyone, sort of just in my own little bubble and not really. I was sort of going down a dark hole after I've already made a lot of improvements with my mental health. And that was also when I was getting heavily involved in the vaporwave community, when I made that vaporwave documentary to begin with, and subsequently when I started launching hard vapor into the mainstream. This is all before I took shrooms and listened to that album. But during that time, I was in a very bad mental headspace, and this sort of hard vapor thing was my way of expressing this internal anger that was existing within me, that I wasn't dealing with, that I wasn't addressing. And it came out in a real way, and it pissed off a lot of people. So, but it also brought a lot of other people together, and it made a lot of other people feel included at the same time. So there was kind of a duality in that realm of a lot of people feeling offended and feeling like their feelings were hurt, but a lot of people feeling like their emotions were expressed and their feelings were looked into more, I guess you would say, which seems to be the case with a lot of people who are fans of mine, that I've sort of helped them sort of get more in touch with their deeper inner emotions. So now, and this isn't to blame Floral Shop completely, because there was a lot of things going on, but it was sort of an allegory of what I was doing, which was a lot of self-medicating, a lot of escapism. And I think that was the main problem with vaporwave, is that it was an escapist genre. It wasn't dealing with any situations. It wasn't trying to fix anything. It wasn't trying to address anything emotionally, spiritually, what have you. It was just sort of putting it all under the surface. And I realized this on shrooms because when I was listening to the album, I had a horrible bad trip. Like, it was insane to the point where I wanted to kill myself, to where I wanted to end it all. And then it basically had to be saved by a guardian angel in order to sort of see the true beauty of the universe. For those of you who haven't done psychedelics, obviously what I'm saying would sound insane and doesn't make sense. But for people who have done it, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Shit gets real when you're doing that kind of stuff. So, and the reason I think why this particular album is demonic is mainly because of the narrative that it's trying to portray, right? You have that main song, the Macintosh 420 song. It's like, it has that line, "It's all in your head," which isn't even actually the lyrics. The lyrics are, "It's all in your hands." And you're inputting that, but there's like this surface level simulation, comfort zone, everything's perfect on the in terms of what you're seeing, basically, in terms of Floral Shop, is that everything is chill, everything's relaxed, there's no problems. But then you have this repeating line, "It's all in your head, it's all in your head," and you're not really sort of dealing with that idea, and it just gets internalized, and it just keeps getting inputted and inputted inside of your head while you're in this sort of chilled out, relaxed state. And what you're basically doing is you're bottling up this emotion, this existentialism, basically, of this is all in your head, of everything's all in your imagination. And in a way, it's a delusion that it's creating for you, that unless you have a breakthrough, you just stay trapped in that same cycle, in that same sort of world, which is also what trap music is. And I think people recognize that, and I think that's why a lot of people listen to it, is because they recognize that trap and vaporwave and whatever is exposing the fake consumerist perfect utopic world where in reality it's all bullshit, it's all fake, it's all based off of immediate gratification. And fine. It's exposing that, but it's not addressing it. And it's not dealing with those things. It's not dealing with that hidden darkness. It's moving you there. It's making you more aligned with it, whether you like it or not. And I'm sort of tying this into trap music as well, because it's important to recognize that as you sink deeper into this mindset, it sort of becomes attached to you. And I think that's why when you find a lot of people who are fans of this genre, they're very isolated, they're very introverted, they're very anxious people. And I was one of those as well. And you sort of don't realize what you're doing to yourself, that you're sort of putting yourself into this little bubble of a world that is sort of counterproductive to what you're supposed to do. And that was the other idea of hard vapor, why I continued into that realm, was because there needs to be this breakthrough, this freedom from this fake little world, this fake little utopia, which essentially the entire vaporwave community has completely enveloped. There is no critique or deeper understanding of what this fake world is. They're just completely absorbed into it, and that's what their reality is, and they don't give a shit about leaving or going anywhere else. They just like this nice little chill comfort zone. They don't care about what's happening outside of their little bubble. And it's dangerous because it's only going to keep recessing these emotions and this dread that's at the root of all of this. And they're not dealing with it, they're not addressing it, it's just sort of sitting in there. And that's sort of what happened when I started hard vapor. Sort of this real kick in the balls in terms of what the real world is like, what real people are like, and what happens when those real people fuck with you. As much as people like to say the whole thing was just me trolling, and in a lot of ways it was, but there was a reason why that happened. I don't just do things, especially as long as I did that, just for no reason. I might have trolled back in the day just for the sake of trolling, but it would only have been for like maybe a day until I got bored. This went on for years, and there's a reason it did, was because there was an important message that I wanted to give people in order for them to break through this fake utopia that they've constructed for themselves, this fake escape land, so to speak, which exists in vaporwave, and it exists in trap music as well. This false notion of abundance, which isn't really abundance, it's an obsession with money and material possessions. It's about escapism, dealing with drugs and alcohol and sex, and these are vices that people are attaching themselves to. And then I did that End of World Rave 2020 because that's ultimately what all of this fake utopia, fake escapism, all this bullshit is leading up to. And this is where we are now, and people are still escaping, not wanting to deal with this situation until it comes right up to their front door. So for all the people who got offended about the hard vapor thing, that was basically a warning of what's coming. And none of them, well, I shouldn't say none, because a lot of them sort of, took in my message and took it seriously. And a lot of people either just ignored it or hated on me. A lot of people hated on me because of my message. And they decided that they would continue living in this false reality and this false utopia while still pretending to be socialist, criticizing the very thing that they're constructing for themselves, which, and then they're also putting the responsibility onto the government or whatever, someone else basically, not taking full responsibility for themselves and improving their own lives independently. This doesn't have anything to do financially. This is purely a spiritual, mental thing. And, I got a lot of hate for that. And so here we are in 2020. And you still have Floral Shop existing putting people into that headspace, although it's sort of been losing a little bit of popularity. But basically, that was my breakthrough when I did that shrooms that one time and really tripped hard and had to be saved by a guardian angel. And sort of understand the universe on a deeper subconscious level in order to escape from this little world that I lived in. And it's still something I'm working on, but it's at least a solace of understanding where I need to go, and if I'm in a place that I'm not supposed to be, that I at least recognize that. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't recognize where they are in their lives. They don't recognize that they are trapped. And it's going to be a huge rude awakening when reality sets in for these people. And this could be in the form of a mental breakdown. This could be in the form of an existential crisis. This could be more physical realities, government controls restricting their lives to the point where they have absolutely no freedom. And by the time they realize that, it's already too late. People not recognizing the fact that their cushy middle class job was actually a life sentence in a way, that they're now sort of enslaved to the corporate world. And you can blame buzzwords like blame liberalism, communism, blame capitalism, blame whatever, and those aren't really getting to the real issues. You just recognize that you're depressed and you're just blaming a word that you don't even really know what it is or what the situation is. Because really this comes down to people on an individual level, I think. And I think that's where Floral Shop is impeding on people's growth. But at the same time, there is an aspect to be thankful for it. Because you can sort of look at this from, Zen Buddhist perspectives, that all great enlightenment comes, before great enlightenment comes great delusion. And, without this delusion, without the demons, without the darkness, there can be no light. There can be no truth. Truth cannot exist without the lie to begin with. So, do I think Floral Shop shouldn't exist, or should it be banned or anything like that? That's weird, and definitely not. I think what people need to do is to just recognize what its goal is and how it could keep you trapped, and to pay attention to other arts and other music, other TV shows, anything that is keeping you trapped mentally. And I think this whole new cycle is a breakaway from that, and people need to recognize it. Otherwise, it's going to come to you whether you like it or not. And you may not like the results if you're not prepared for it, because a lot of people aren't prepared for it, and it's going to fuck up their lives. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.